welcome to CB Media, American Conservative Radio on the CB Media Network. The number to call in is 347-989-8249. And I think we have Mr. Floyd Bayne on the call. Floyd, is that you, man? You on?
I am here.
All right. So Floyd is running for the 7th District Congressional seat in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm glad to have you on, man. I'm glad we've finally had a chance to do this.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
No problem. So I wanted to sort of ask you. I want to ask you about your campaign and all that. I really do, and I want you to tell me why you're doing it, and tell our listeners why what kind of brought you to this spot. But before we get to all that, I wanted to kind of pick your brain on sort of the similar question I asked Ellis a while ago. This whole movement over the last, say, year and a half, starting with, of course, the election of Barack Obama, and then they had the Tea Party movement starting that February of 2009, it culminated in April 15th, and then September 12th, and all that. Do you feel like, number one, do you feel yourself kind of a part of that movement at all as a candidate, or do you feel like you kind of came to that conclusion sort of independently?
I think a little both, actually. I'm not trying to set myself up as being smarter than anybody else here, but I think I was a little ahead of the curve in the sense that I've paid attention to both parties for a long time, and I've been politically involved in the sense that I actually look at my representatives and what they vote for and what they say and do. And I haven't been happy with either party for a long time. And I think it all just came to a head for me when my representative voted for TARP.
Right.
And up until that point, he had already voted for several growing government bills, despite his rhetoric to the contrary. And when he voted for TARP, I just went over the edge. And I didn't know what else to do. I mean, I've written the letters, I've made the phone calls, I've done all the things that a citizen is supposed to do. What was the next step? Well, I went to my first protest ever here in Richmond last April, not this past April, the April before, and
That's right.
It was the first Tea Party event we had here in Richmond. And I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to any one of these things. All I knew is what I'd seen on TV, and it was usually leftists that were doing the protesting.
Right.
I met a lot of great people. They were well behaved. In fact, one of the police officers working crowd control there was a good friend of mine, told me he'd never had such an easy job. It was just the nicest people you could ever want to deal with. But in talking to these people and in seeing what they had to say and how they felt, I realized I wasn't alone. But I was still frustrated to the point of, I've got to do something. It's just not enough to stand here and applaud for speeches and hold a sign up. What can I do? And that's when I just decided, you know what, I've got to challenge this guy. I've got to run for office. As difficult as it may prove to be and as time-consuming as it is, someone has got to challenge the status quo. And he's got to provide for the voters another choice. This concept of continuing to settle for the lesser of two evils was just not something I was willing to accept.
Right. Well, I'm with you. And people have tackled this different ways. I mean, when I came to the similar sort of come to Jesus moment around the same time you did, late in 2008, around the TARP time. It was also, around the hot spot of the election. And that's when I decided to get involved with, another party, with, taxpayer groups, Tea Parties, whatever, everything that came up, I started getting involved with it. But what do you feel like has been sort of the biggest challenge you've had? Now you're running against the minority whip, right? So
yes,
he's got
correct.
a little cash, right? I mean, so, I mean, other than the obvious, you're a normal human running against a demigod of a minority whip, with millions and millions of dollars. Other than that obvious challenge, what do you feel like has been, the number one obstacle over the last? Well, you've been on it for a good solid year, right?
Yeah, I filed my papers with the FEC in September of last year, so I've been pounding the pavement since then. You're right. I mean, the guy's got a lot of money. He's firmly ensconced in Washington and part of the in crowd up there. I think the most frustrating thing for me so far has been trying to break free from that R versus D paradigm that you run into. I mean, there's so many people are just absolutely convinced that the only thing worth voting for is someone who has an R or a D next to their name. Other than that, well, I'm throwing my vote away, or you can't possibly have a chance of winning. And the reason that's so frustrating is because as a Tea Party member and someone who espouses the principles of the Tea Party and the Patriot groups, I am for limited government, for fiscal responsibility, for returning to the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. Now, this is what a lot of these people say, but then when you ask them, well, who are you going to vote for? Well, I'm going to vote for the R again. Well, wait a minute. You just said you're against all this stuff that he's voted for, and yet you're going to vote for him again? Why would you do that? And so they can't give you a rational answer. I have yet to get one from anybody. Well, I just like him, or I like the way he looks, or he says the right things. Well, that's great. He says the right things, but have you looked at his voting record? And so I guess that's been the biggest source of frustration for me is it's not like this is some deep, dark secret, Butch. I mean, you know as well as I do, in 2 minutes you can go on the Internet and find the voting record of any one of the representatives in Congress.
Right.
And compare that to their rhetoric. Well, he said he was for limited government, but look what he did to grow the government. So, you know, that has proven to be probably the biggest source of frustration. But I have to say, in all candor, and this is purely anecdotal, no formal polls have been done, but most of the people I've talked to, and if I had to put a number on it, I'd say about 90% of the people I have talked with personally or online support the idea of an independent candidate, whether it's independent, libertarian, American Conservative Party, pick your poison. They just like the idea that they have another choice. They don't have to settle. So I've been really jazzed about that. The volunteers I have working with me are just great people and keep me pumped up and moving in the right direction. So, you know, if I ever find myself maybe getting a little down or, you know, just angry or frustrated with the whole situation, you know, they give me a pat on the back, and sometimes my campaign manager, Tammy Parada, gives me a swift kick in the butt, but, you know, when I need it, I get it, and, you know, it just keeps me moving forward. So, you know, if I do it for no other reason now, I'd have to do it because I just don't want to disappoint those people.
Right, I got you. Well, so what's been going on the last few weeks? Anything, any developments, any new, you know, goings on that have made your life even easier or harder, or, you know, what's been shaking down there in the 7th District?
We've been getting a little bit more press coverage lately, which has been a good thing, both on the radio and on the newspapers. And because of that, more people are coming to realize that they do have another candidate in the race.
Right.
The yard signs we're putting around, I've got more people calling and emailing me for those. And I've actually had some people here recently, I didn't even know about you until I saw the yard sign on the street in front of my house. So that's been real helpful. And Tammy's been coming up with some great ideas for getting the message out, and we're trying to do our best to just take advantage of the various new technology with the computer and all the social networking that you can do now, and try to get the message out that way. So it's been moving forward. We're very much grassroots. We're very much a low-budget campaign. We knew that going in, so that there was no mystery there. So we knew we were going to have to think outside the box and come up with new and innovative ways of getting the message out. But, again, the more people who hear about me, then exponentially the more people who hear about me. So it's been growing in that sense. The word of mouth is really helping.